What's up, guys? I'm Sarah Weaver. Welcome back to True Crime Tuesday. Today we are going to be talking about a weird one, okay? It's about a vampire cult, and it was created by this guy named Rod Ferrell, and it's so weird. There's some gross parts to it, I'm not even gonna lie, so take that as a disclaimer up front here. But if you like these types of videos, as always, please subscribe below. I see a lot of you out there who are watching and not subscribing, so just subscribe already, you know? Like, what are you waiting for, really? Because I don't know. Tell me, what are you waiting for? Hmm? Just kidding. So, anyways, like, subscribe, comment below, do all the things. Let's get into the video, shall we? All right, guys, so let's start out at the very beginning, and we're going to talk about Rod. Now, Rod was born in 1980, and he lived in Murray, Kentucky, and his parents were actually teenagers at the time when he was born. So they really didn't have the means to take care of Rod and, you know, be good parents like they should. So after Rod was born, his father was in his life for about a year or so, and then he just left. He said, "Peace out, I'm going to the army, and I'm never going to see you guys again." So basically, Rod ends up being raised by his mother, whose name is Sandra Gibson. Rod and Sandra ended up living with Sandra's parents, Rod's grandparents, on and off over the years. Sandra was just never really able to support Rod like she needed to, so she needed a lot of help from her parents, and they really helped, you know, raise Rod for a while when he was younger. However, there was a traumatic event that, according to Rod, happened when he was 5 years old, and he claims that he was raped by his grandfather while they were living in their house. Now, unfortunately, charges were never brought against the grandfather, and nobody was able to prove that this crime took place. So the grandfather just got away with it, and they no longer stayed with the grandparents after this happened. So in order to support herself and Rod, Sandra would work as a stripper. She was a sex worker for a little while, really just kind of taking whatever jobs she could get to make money. And unfortunately, sometimes those high-paying jobs seem to be, you know, sex workers and strippers and things like that. I mean, some people won't believe it, but like, those girls make a lot of money. Not that I know from experience, but, you know, I just know that, you know, these strippers be making money out here, okay? Now, one other thing to know about Sandra before we move on is that she actually said that she dabbled in vampirism, or vampirism, I don't know how you say that, when she was younger as well, like in her teenage years. So I think that's where Rod kind of got his ideas to pursue this a little bit more, kind of look into it, see what it's all about, do his research, and not that I want to blame the mom for getting him into this, but like, what the heck? Why would you tell your kid about this? I mean, like, I don't know. So, as Rod gets into his teenage years, he kind of starts to be interested in more of these role playing type of games like Dungeons and Dragons and um, what was the other one? Something about like the vampire masquerade or something. Maybe I sound stupid right now because I don't know what it's called, but some type of vampire role playing game, okay? And, if I was a psychologist, which I'm not, but I would probably say that this sounds like a kid who's pretty lost in his life and is kind of trying to find an escape from reality. He doesn't like his home life, he doesn't really have family to lean on. Um, and he's just trying to, like any life is better than the one that he's in, than his reality. So I don't really blame him for going down this road, but I wish it wasn't something so dark as like vampirism. I mean, that is like where things get a little bit derailed for me mentally. I'm like, okay, Dungeons and Dragons, yeah, like I get that. That's cool. Tons of people play that. Like, whatever, do your thing. But when you start drinking people's blood, now that is just like taking things to an unnecessary level, in my opinion. So, yeah. Going into his high school years, um, Rod starts to be friends with this kid at school named Jaden. And Jaden is like the same type of person as Rod, really. A little gothic, doesn't really want to fit in with the rest of the kids. And he kind of takes Rod under his wing and he's like, I know everybody in this school wants us to be against each other and, kind of have this like gothic feud or whatever. But he's like, I'm going to take you under my wing and we're all going to be like family, instead of in opposite gangs or whatever. So Rod's like, okay, sweet, let's do it. I'm sure he talked like that. So he's friends with Jaden, and Jaden's like, okay, I'm part of this vampire group and I want you to join. So I'm going to sire you into the family with us. They call it the family. So I guess they don't really call themselves a cult. I mean, I think most cults don't call themselves a cult, but so basically, in order to be sired in, Rod had to drink Jaden's blood, and Jaden had to drink Rod's blood, and that made them bonded blood brothers or whatever you want to call it. So they do that. And there's a couple other members of the group too. I think 2 girls and 2 guys, or something along those lines. So after Rod is sired in, he is now a vampire. And he is crossed over to the dark side, and he is one of the family members now. Over the years, Rod and his mom would move back and forth between Eustis, Florida, and Murray, Kentucky. And that was because Sandra's parents had gotten a house down in Florida. So they would spend some time down there living with them, and then they would come back up and, try to get back on their feet, live on their own again. And so they would kind of go back and forth. So while Rod and Sandra were living in Eustis, Florida, Rod became friends with a girl named Heather Wendorf. And she was known as being like a troubled teen. She would always rebel against her parents for, them making her clean her room and, petty little things like that. Like, 90% of teenagers. But I guess she kind of like went to extremes and she had this reputation of just like, F my parents. I guess she would claim that they were abusive to her, and very controlling and things like that. And so I think her and Rod kind of found a common ground on hating their families and their family lives and all that stuff. But then, unfortunately, Rod ended up moving back to Kentucky, and he would call Heather on the phone, but it would be long distance, and her parents would get pissed off that they were running up the phone bill with these conversations and everything. So I think, it just built tensions even higher with Heather and her parents, and she just kind of was ready to get out of there whenever she could get the chance. So now Rod is back in Murray, Kentucky, and he's in 10th grade, and, he's back with his good old vampire clan. They're doing vampire stuff. One night they're like walking along the street at night, just talking, hanging out, and they see a stray cat run across the road. And for some reason, I guess this isn't so weird, but Rod goes up to it and he's like playing with the cat, holding the cat, and the cat just like claws him a little bit on the arm, like maybe trying to get away. It's a vampire. Hello, like how could it not be scared, right? So this cat's like, F this, jumps out of Rod's arms, and Rod said he was just like in a bad mood that day, and he was like the stress of life and everything that was going on, it just got to me and I just snapped, and he grabbed the cat. He walked over to a nearby tree. This is so sick. He grabbed the cat and he slung it against the tree, holding it by its feet, and he cracked its neck against the tree. And if that doesn't like tell you something is seriously wrong with this kid, like I don't know what would. And unfortunately, this wasn't the only act of animal cruelty that happened with Rod and his friends. Now, there was an interview where Jaden was saying after the thing with the cat happened, it kind of put some distance between Rod and I, and, we just weren't really as close as we were before, and I kind of backed off of him. I knew he obviously had a lot on his mind, a lot going on, just things that, he didn't want to be a part of. And then comes this night where they decide to do some ritual, some initiation where to bring other new members into the group, they went to this animal shelter nearby, and I guess they kept their puppies and dogs outside, like, I guess like in a pen kind of situation where you could just open the gate and get in and play with the animals. They were outside at night. I'm not really sure why. However, these kids decided that it would be a good idea to go in there and kill some of the puppies and basically mutilate them. And I don't know how many they killed. I think it was only like 2 or 3, but one is too many, So they pulled their limbs off, tortured them, stepped on them. It's so disturbing. Like, I'm such an animal lover too. Like, that really, really bothered me to hear that. So anyways, things are kind of going downhill for these vampires, and things are getting a little bit dark. It's turning from just like role playing and like fun and games and drinking each other's blood to like killing animals and stuff. And Rod is just the leader of all of this, and it's just not good. It's not good. So after this incident, Rod was arrested for his participation, and they got him on charges of animal cruelty and trespassing, and burglary as well. So now we move on to November of 1995. Rod and a few of his friends decide that they are going to leave town. They're kind of going to go start a new life somewhere. But first, they want to go pick up Heather, who is still living in Eustis, Florida. His other friends in the car with him are his girlfriend, who's 16. Her name is Charity, Howard Scott Anderson, and another girl named Dana Cooper. So they're all driving there. They have this plan that, they're going to start a new life in New Orleans and just have their cute little vampire family and just do like all their vampire stuff in New Orleans. And I mean, I don't know if they've watched like the Vampire Diaries and the originals and all that stuff. I mean, holler if you do too, because that used to be my show, okay? But that's where all the vampires live in that show. Well, a lot of them. If you weren't in Mystic Falls. Oh my god, I'm such a nerd. So they're about to, live out their dreams of this perfect little vampire clan when they get to Heather's house in Florida. And this is where things take a turn. So get ready. Everyone, buckle your seatbelts, get your popcorn out, okay? If you don't have it out already, get it out. Trust me. So the first thing that they decide to do before they take Heather with them, they tell her, we need you to cross over. We need you to become a vampire like one of us, and then you can join the family. So they take her to this cemetery and they perform this ritual, and she drinks their blood and she crosses over. And she's now a vampire. And they're like, okay, we are going to need you to take your parents' car. We only have this one car. And, it'd be nice if you could just steal your parents' car and we can take that with us to New Orleans. So before this happens, if you can remember back to earlier, I kind of told you that Heather was a troubled teen. She said her parents abused her. She would talk about this often to Rod. So Rod kind of had this animosity toward them, and just, he would talk about hurting them and whatever, you should kill your parents, Heather, blah, 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 all this stuff. And eventually, I think Rod just took his power of being a vampire a little too far. And Rod goes in the house with Charity. But before they go in, Heather is like, Rod, please don't hurt my parents. Like, just leave them alone. Get in there, sneak in, and just get the keys and let's go. Like, don't mess around. Don't talk to them. Just leave them alone, okay? I really don't want them to be hurt in this process. Does Rod listen to her? No, of course he doesn't. I'm sorry, I misspoke before. So he actually goes in the house with Scott Anderson. So it's Rod and Scott Anderson, and they're going into the house, and I guess something just comes over Rod as they're walking in. They're going through the garage. Rod grabs a lead pipe. He grabs the pipe and he starts walking into the house. And he sees that Heather's dad is laying on the couch. He's asleep. And all of a sudden, he just takes this lead pipe and starts bashing him in the head. And after a couple of swings, her dad is just dead. He wasn't able to fight back or anything, just totally caught off guard, and he's just helpless, and he just dies almost immediately. Then Heather's mom comes out of the bathroom. I guess she was in the shower when this is all happening, and she must have heard something. And she comes out of the bathroom and she's walking down the hallway and she sees Rod standing there and she's like, "What the heck? Who are you?" And she starts yelling at him and running toward him. He's coming at her with the lead pipe and she grabs him, trying to like scratch at him, claw at him. She actually gets her nails into his face, and she is wrapped around him, and Rod had this pipe in his hand and he's hitting her in the back of her head so hard with just like the blunt end of the pipe that he actually severed her brainstem, and she died immediately. So Rod and Anderson both leave the house. There's just a bloody mess everywhere. It's so disgusting. And they don't even tell Heather what happened when they get back into the car. They're just like, okay, we got the car, now let's go, and we'll be on our way. So later that night, Heather's 17-year-old sister Jennifer gets home from work, and she walks into their house and finds her parents' bodies and freaks out. She calls the police, and on November 27th, warrants were issued for the arrests of these teenagers. Now, the vampire clan is out on the run, they're performing their mind control on people as they go along, and just kidding, they're not doing that, but they think they're doing that, and they think that they're going to get away with this. So they are on this little road trip for about 4 days, and the police finally catch up to them, and they arrest them. So once these vampires are arrested, basically, Rod tries to play it off like it was another clan of vampires who was trying to actually set them up for this crime, and it wasn't them at all. You have the wrong people. It's another vampire clan. Because there's just so many out here, to blame it on. I don't know. Maybe there is, and I just don't know. When this didn't work, Rod also tried to say that he had a multiple personality disorder, and being a vampire was one of his personalities, and it wasn't really him, Rod, that killed these people. It was his vampire personality that killed people. He's smart, He's smart. He is. So time goes by, and these kids have been sitting in prison awaiting their trial, right? And it's 1998, and the trial has finally come. So the first day of trial, Rod just surprises everybody, and he admits to being guilty of killing these two people. I think he admits this because he thinks that he can avoid the death penalty. There's a quote from him saying he just wants to live. It was him, and he's sorry for his actions. And his mother was also at the trial, and it said that she broke into tears hearing him say this, and she was just beside herself. She could not understand, why Rod would have done something like this, which I'm sure, most kids' moms would think that, it'd be a little shocking to find out that your kid was a murderer. And I guess she was okay with him being a vampire and drinking blood and all that, but she drew the line at killing. So I guess there's some type of conscience there, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, Rod ends up getting sentenced to death, and the judge actually said that it was the youngest person that he has ever had to put on death row. He was only 18 at the time, I believe. 17 or 18 when this happened. So, yeah, pretty young. So you're probably wondering what happened to the rest of the group that was with them. So Scott Anderson is the one that went in the house with him, and he actually pled guilty and received 2 life sentences. Soon afterwards, Dana Cooper and Charity, his girlfriend, ended up making plea deals for a lesser sentence. So Charity ended up receiving 10 years in prison, and Dana Cooper received 17. In December of 2018, it was reported that Anderson's sentence actually got reduced by 40 years, which to me doesn't really make a difference because he had 2 life sentences, so I'm not sure what the point of that is, but it happened. Also, I kind of wanted to show you guys some pictures of Rod just like during the time that the trial was going on, and it seemed like he was remorseful at first when he pled guilty, and then all of a sudden he starts being like very cheeky with the press, as he's walking into the courthouse and stuff like that. There's pictures of him like sticking his tongue out at the camera and saying like God bless America and weird shit like that. Honestly, like I just kind of think that he didn't really care at all about what he did to Heather's parents. And I mean, I know obviously he had a lot wrong with him mentally, but like I seriously just don't think that he has that remorse in him. He doesn't have, he's not able to express that empathy and that, sadness for somebody, even for, Heather. I mean, that's her family and you just killed them, and, you don't even have anything to say to Heather about that, or I don't know, just to kind of give you guys perspective on the type of person he was. Obviously, he just turned into a complete psychopath and with no emotion or regard for anyone else's. And then last but not least, we have Heather Wendorf, right? A lot of people thought that she really did have something to do with this, and that, after all this abuse and everything she would tell her friends about, there was suspicion that she really did want her parents dead and she just couldn't do it herself, so she wanted Rod to do it for her. So grand juries actually decided that they never wanted to press charges against Heather for any of this. She had told in her statements multiple times that she never wanted Rod to do this. She never asked him to. She never wanted her parents dead. And I guess they just believed her, and she never got any type of punishment for this situation, which, I guess in hindsight, it makes sense to me, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, well, what about the other girls? They were just supposedly innocent bystanders in the car, and what did they have to do with anything? Why did they get so much time? And so I'm not really sure about that. It doesn't 100% add up to me, and I guess that's what happens when you read these articles. They only tell you, so much information and so much detail on the trials and, what the charges were and all of that. So things don't always make 100% sense to me, but, at least you kind of get the idea of what happened. And everybody else was charged and sentenced, and Heather got to go on and live her life. And I'm not sure where she's at right now, what she's doing, but, I hope that things got better for her because she really got sucked into a weird situation there. And yeah. Also, I realized I didn't say, but in 2000, Rod's sentence actually ended up being converted over to life in prison. So that's where he currently is. I guess the state ruled that if you commit the crime when you're 17 or younger, then you're not allowed to be on death row, basically. So he got out of that and is now serving life in prison. All right, guys, so yeah, that is the story of the creepy vampire cult. If you guys want more information about this, I also know that there is a HBO documentary made about the whole thing. There is another YouTube video that I watched. I will link it below. I can't remember the name of the channel. I'll link it below for you so you can go watch there. But there's also like interviews on both of those documentaries from Rod himself, and those are actually really interesting. Just to hear the way he talks about the crime and talks about being a vampire and all this stuff. And they have other interviews with other members of the cult, and so those are interesting to listen to too. So if you want to go check those out, I'll leave those below for you. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to tell you guys today. So yeah, I hope you guys liked this story. If you did, please like the video below. Give me a thumbs up. Also, if you guys could subscribe below, that would be great as well. I would love to just grow this channel and see what it can become. I know I've said that before, but you know, I am excited about this, and I just want to talk to you guys in the comments and see, you know, what you think of things. And so yeah, go comment below, like, subscribe, and I will be back here next week with another true crime video for you guys. And that is all I have to say. So I hope you guys have a great week, and I will see you next Tuesday. Bye!